How you going, guys? And welcome back to another episode of What Do You Do for a Crust? With us today, we have a IT specialist. Thank you very much for joining us.
No, my pleasure.
Greatly appreciate your time. I am conscious that it is late on Friday night, so thank you again. I know that IT specialist is a title that I've put in for this episode, and it's very generic. Can you take us through a little bit more? We'll get into our Fast Five like we normally do, but can you explain to us specifically what your role is in IT? Because I know there's so many.
Yeah. Look, it's a tough one because it is kind of varied. I guess I wear a few hats. But I guess
is that common in IT? Just out of curiosity.
I think so at my level. So I work for a managed service provider. So basically, what that is, it's an IT house, an IT. We've got about 20 or 30 people, and we just do, I guess, IT support.
So you guys like not subcontractors, I guess.
Yeah, we have like agreements with companies. It's basically, if you're a company, and you're, I guess it's a broad sort of thing, but if you are maybe too small to have, I guess, the ability to have your own internal IT team, or maybe you're at that middle to larger size,
it doesn't necessitate having an in-house
team.
technician,
But again, maybe it's just not right at the level where you have a dedicated IT department. We kind of offer that service, just general IT management, I guess. There's a lot of stuff that we do, but that's kind of the broad sort of.
Don't worry, we'll get into the stuff because I definitely want to know.
So yeah, basically IT services for companies that don't want to bring that kind of thing in house, and I guess we have we can provide that experience that you might not get if you had that dedicated, without a decent sized dedicated team. We've got guys, network engineers, and we've got general frontline support team, and all sorts of specialists on various things. IT is such a broad.
That's why I'm really curious.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful to meet with you and to learn about this, because I know, one, the complexity of IT. I'm an absolute Neanderthal, old school, grumpy bastard, so I don't get tech.
Yeah, no, that's good.
We're talking on a podcast. It took me months to get my head around. But so I understand it's not a one size fits all by any means. Let's jump into our Fast Five, even though I know this is going to be very varied, so I do apologise, and I'll try and not give you leading questions. But pros and cons of working in IT and the specifics that you do.
Oh yeah, I think what I like about it, you get there's a lot of problem solving. It's a technical role, so it's very interesting. It's very dynamic. It's always changing. I think that's probably what I like about it. You never really, I guess you're sort of, I feel like I almost have perpetual imposter syndrome, because things move at quite a pace, and keeps things interesting, and you're constantly learning, and there's, I guess the other thing from that, you get that gratification a lot, when you're learning something new, you apply it to a real situation, so that's a great thing. I suppose there's flexibility as well, being the job that it is, IT technical, I can virtually perform my entire job remotely, so that gives you good flexibility. I guess flexibility in terms of where you're working, work from home, or even working abroad. There are people, we're obviously Australians, there's people,
we are.
there's
South
people working in Australia that are working for multinational companies, or international companies, should I say. So there's a lot of flexibility there. You can do a lot from behind a keyboard.
Nice.
And so that's I suppose for many a pro. And
have you heard that? Not to interrupt you, sorry. Have you heard the new saying that's been going around? That old saying of the pen is mightier than the sword. Have you heard that it's now changed to the keyboard is mightier than the sword?
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's we're it's 2026. We are in the age of tech.
Yeah, absolutely. You look. What is it? I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I think it's like the top 10. The top 500 companies or something in America.
Highest growth industry.
9 out of the top 10 or something are tech companies. So
it's
a fair enough statement, I think. But to go back to what you were saying earlier, it's a broad industry, and I think there's this misconception that hey, I work in IT, and so therefore I know everything about tech, or I'm not a developer, for example, not a programmer.
Mm.
So you might be out at a lunch or something, and the girlfriends normally want the boys to mix or whatever, and it's like, oh, so and so's he's in IT too. You guys should meet and
Yeah, you
chat. And
guys
it's
must do
like
the exact same thing.
we're completely we're like you know aliens to each other. Like
It happens quite a lot. Everyone assumes, like, if you're a lawyer, you all know that, but no, there's different parts of law.
100%,
If you're a chef,
exactly,
there's different cuisines that you study.
100%. It's
Health professional, there's different avenues. It's very
exactly,
true.
exactly. It's extremely broad. So
I interrupted you before, and I'm very sorry.
mm,
We were just about to touch on cons of working in
cons.
IT,
Yeah.
and that might be one.
Uh,
The assumption that we
I
all do the
mean,
same thing.
I guess I'm sure they're broadly similar to most other jobs. I suppose. I think we were talking off the record, or
Yeah.
offline, should I say, before this. There is a sentiment, I think, in my job, that IT is so hopeless, and I guess the complexity of IT and some of the size of some. I think if people maybe had an understanding of the complexity and the size of the systems that just run an everyday kind of middle-sized business, they'd be
Yeah.
shocked at what goes on behind the scenes. So I suppose,
It is a fascinating sector
yeah,
like that when you think about it. Like,
yeah,
we see the complexities of, say, running a business, but people, we get to work, we log on the computer if you're in an office space, or if you're using computers, which, I mean, everyone uses computers now, but you just assume it's going to work, and
yeah,
you'll connect to the Wi-Fi, you'll connect to your VPN, or to your network, or you'll be able to use this software, this app, this platform.
yeah,
And we just, as soon as it doesn't work, all hell breaks loose, and we just think
yeah,
someone's magically going to be able to fix it all.
yeah. And I think a lot of the time, and I'm not trying to, I don't want this to come off across the wrong way, but a lot of the time it is like magic, right? Like, I think by and large, most of the time you have a problem, you go to your IT department and they fix it.
Yeah.
And took a lot for them to get to that point of, to have that intuition to
Yeah.
know what the issue is and to fix it then and there. So I guess that's something that you run into pretty frequently. I mean, I like my job, so trying to think of cons here.
That's okay.
I think maybe something else that I've found is I'm a pretty late entrant to the industry. I obviously had a career. I've only relatively young, I suppose, in the industry, so I had a career before this in a different
You're
industry.
young anyway, but
But yeah, I think probably something I've noticed is I guess there is a little bit of that stereotype. I think in a way it's been hard at times to find. I suppose there's a lot of people that maybe aren't as sociable as I am, and I think so in some ways that's the culture. I suppose at a few of the my limited experience at a couple of MSPs, I suppose there's maybe been some room for improvement in terms of culture and diversity.
and so what's an MSP?
That's the managed service provider.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so I should have elaborated on that earlier.
So
So, managed service provider, which is we, as I explained briefly what we do, but having worked at a couple of different MSPs, I think that's something I've noticed is maybe there's been, and I'm sure a lot of people who are
Yeah.
listening are thinking, I work in an MSP and the culture's great, and I'm
Just
sure
your
that's
opinion.
the case. And I'm not saying I actually love my team and who I work with now, but I guess coming from a trade, that's maybe a little bit rougher around the edges, and so perhaps this is more of a corporate thing in general. But certainly, I think there is the stereotype. Whilst I think it's overblown, is the stereotype of the typical sort of basement dweller, IT nerd with his headphones
it
on.
makes you think
I
of,
think
that
there's
show
those
IT
people.
Crowd.
Yeah, those
you know?
people do exist, and actually, a lot of the time, those people are amazing and
Yeah.
extremely interesting. But I suppose if I was going to say a con, sometimes you feel like maybe there could be a little bit more.
Appreciation.
No, appreciation's not it. Just I guess I think it comes back to what I was saying. My first con. I think you're under fire a lot, and so I think sometimes it's nice to stop and maybe just let the hair down a bit more, and maybe that doesn't happen as much as I would like, but geez, I'm clutching at straws here because I
All
think
good.
by and large I really do like my job,
That's
and
absolutely
it's
fine.
fantastic.
Growth pathways and opportunities. So what's say you've entered the industry and you're whatever level it might be.
Mm-hmm.
What's the kind of trajectory for someone in IT? And again, I know how
Mm.
broad the sector
Yeah,
is.
I think there's so many. It really depends, I think, on your skill set, or should I say, on your own strengths.
Interest.
So you can go into, I mean, talking from my snippet of IT, I guess that I work within. I'm just thinking of my own workplace. There's account management. So if you're good with people, maybe you go down a stream where you're the face of the organization. You
Yeah.
have a subset of clients, and you're the sort of go between. So that's something I've considered myself, and that has that can lead to all sorts of things in itself. I think at an MSP like I am, we're pretty generalized. But I think if you want to take that next step from a technical perspective, you're probably looking to specialize. And I probably think that that's where I am myself. I'm at that point that if I really want to grow much further, I probably need to pick a stream, whether that be becoming a network engineer or I guess just becoming highly specialized, going into maybe more of an internal role at an organization where
Be the in-house technician
really
and
become familiar with that environment. And there's pros and cons to that as well. I'm always afraid, if you're picking a stream and you're becoming highly specialized, that you're locking yourself in. That could be a bit daunting.
very fair. I mean, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, which is absolutely fair.
Yeah.
I'm very quickly realizing how complex this industry is because it's so important now. There's so much pressure on it, but also just the wide variety. You've got, I think, gone are the days of just you've got web design and like remote logins. Now you've got AI, we've got software, we've got app development, we've got, I mean, I honestly don't know. That's the limit of my experience and knowledge in IT. But just in the sheer examples you've just given around, multiple different pathways and going down a speciality, it sounds extremely complex, but then also extremely unique. That you might have 10 IT guys in the room and they all have different specialties.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the beauty of it, really. And I guess, going back to, if I wanted to add that to the list of pros, there's so much opportunity, there's so many options. And so, it's really something I've found. I mean, it can be overwhelming, but I think to have that choice is comforting.
Yeah.
You don't want to be I personally don't want to be in an industry maybe that's a little, tightly focused, I guess, or maybe where you feel like you're locked in once you sort of choose, coming, as I said, from another industry, completely different job, and making that move into IT. It's nice that I don't often regret it, even if perhaps I at times might go, maybe I am not loving my current position, or where do I want to progress?
But there's opportunity to grow, there's opportunity for moving.
There's not a lack of choice, that's for sure.
I mean, it definitely sounds like, oh my God.
Okay.
Let's go with, entry and pathways. How'd you get into this?
Well, I suppose I was a mechanic.
Yeah.
To put that out there, I keep referring to my other jobs. I was a mechanic for 10 years, and did my apprenticeship. Generally liked my job, but I guess you kind of get over the getting dirty all the time. The pressure that comes with a lot of pressure as well. People want their cars fixed, and I guess as well, thinking long term, you start to wonder about your body. How long are you going to be able to do this? And
shoulders,
and also,
back, knees, hands.
I guess I got to a point in that job where I'm starting to think, what's the next level? And how do I take it to the next level? And it's sort of thinking, well, okay, I'm probably going to have to start my own business. I've maxed out.
You hit that ceiling.
I've hit that ceiling. If I really want to take it to the next level, I'm going to have to start my own business. And then sort of thinking about that, it's like, well, you can go mobile. You can do that. I think you're fairly limited in what you can do mobile. So I'm thinking realistically, I'm going to have to buy a workshop. There's all these overheads.
It's a big jump, yeah.
And so, it's not like maybe other trades where you buy a trailer and some
Yeah,
tools and
and you're kind of easy to go.
and so, that's all very daunting. And then you're thinking, well, everything's going electric. So I'm still young, I want a 30, 40-year career.
Yeah.
If I start if I open a workshop now and I put myself into all that debt, I'm going to have to, I need a long enough trajectory to pay that back. And I just didn't feel like maybe that was going to be, I guess, a comfortable path to go down. So I'm thinking, okay, well, what am I good at? What do I like about being a mechanic? Well, I like the troubleshooting. And I happen to be really good at the technical stuff. Normally, I was the guy
diagnostics and
with the diagnostic tool. I was good with all the modern cars. And so, I guess turned out that IT seemed pretty appealing. And I was always a bit of a nerd anyway, so, at home...
I think it's an unfair stereotype. You think about the reliance on technology. Like, we literally have technology in our hands right now in regards to microphones, headsets, laptop, sound condenser, phones, all that kind of stuff. Like, you've joined the biggest growth industry in history, theoretically. I don't know, maybe, from the automotive history in the 1930s and such, but, I mean... What an industry to get into. You've been in this industry for a few years now. It sounds like you kind of foresaw where the future was going.
Yeah, and there was no special, foresight with that. It was, I got into being a mechanic because I liked cars. That was the extent of my research into that job. Okay. I like cars. What should I do when I leave school? Well, what am I interested in? Well, I like computers. I like playing video games, and I like cars. So I chose cars, and that was the extent of my research before I chose that path. And with IT, it was very similar. I think when you're pretty much 30 and you're making a career change, I think it's a big change, and I guess you kind of got to consider your existing skill set and interests. You don't want to pick a job that you don't know if you're going to like. You got to feel relatively confident, I think, that you're going to enjoy it, and having a little bit of a hobbyist, I guess, skill set was helpful. And so much of what I learned as a mechanic was transferable into IT from a troubleshooting perspective. It seems like two completely unrelated, worlds apart job or careers, but I've actually found that whatever part of my brain is lighting up when I was a mechanic is lighting up just the same as in IT. So much of the skills you learn from a troubleshooting perspective are applicable.
It's a good... I've had a lot of conversations with guests about this, but there's no such thing as wasted time. There's no such thing as wasted experience. It's made you the individual you are today. It's made you have the confidence to troubleshoot, to work autonomously, to ask for help, to offer help, to have leadership qualities, to have be approachable, all those kind of things. Even you're talking that maybe there's a bad stereotype that individuals in IT maybe aren't the most social. I'm sure there was a lot of customer service that was involved in automotive industry as well as in the IT one as well. So that might give you a leg up compared to others. So there's heaps of detail there.
I think IT is getting to the point where it's becoming, as you sort of alluded to, it's becoming pretty mainstream now. So I think that stereotype is kind of eroding with time, because it's such a big industry on its own now.
100%.
You need all sorts of characters and all sorts of skill sets. So which is good, I think. It's definitely an interesting place to work, I think. Yeah.
So for the record, pathway and entry.
Sorry, we went off on a tangent.
That's all good. It happens a lot on this podcast. And you're a mechanic?
Yep, mechanic.
How do you enter IT?
Yeah, so how did I enter IT? I got to think about this. So it's a funny story. My boss, or I guess my current employer, was a customer of mine as a mechanic. So I looked after his car for years. We knew each other for years.
Nice.
Purely a customer, client. Client. What do you call it? Client.
God.
Service provider relationship.
Yeah.
So I was got to know him. Seemed pretty friendly. and I knew that he worked in IT, and at this point, obviously, I was thinking that might be the path for me. So I actually gave him a call, and he was kind enough to speak with me for a little while. He was very positive about. I was just asking him, can you give me any advice? If I want to get into this industry, do I go and try and get into uni and do a degree? Do I do some tertiary education? Like, where do I go? And he was actually very optimistic, and he virtually offered me a job on the spot. I guess he knew me.
Well, he probably knew your work ethic, probably knew you
I think,
can hold a conversation, you've got a head on your shoulders,
Yeah, and, a couple of days later, I think he said, this weekend, let's catch up for a beer. And we did. And to be clear, he didn't hire me. It just wasn't, the timing wasn't right. But he spoke to me for a while, gave me some tips, and I think one of the pieces of advice he gave me was not to go too crazy in terms of, as I said, signing up to uni or something. I suppose that's with the perspective of where I was at in my life, being 30 and having a family and a mortgage, etc. So, and I think that was sound advice. So he said, see if you can get perhaps a traineeship, because there's a few providers that'll take you on as a trainee, and it's essentially like a TAFE course. It's kind of like a mini apprenticeship. And that's what I did. So I actually had another contact through my father. His IT provider had such a program. So he put me in contact.
Yeah, still had to go through
the process, went for an interview. I mean, the great thing was, as I said, this is a traineeship, so the expectation was that you were, raw, straight off the street. And there's a lot of that in IT, by the way.
Sometimes people or industries or organisations like that, because they can mould you or shape you to,
and we're talking very entry level here, So I signed up. They gave me the traineeship, and I basically worked on the help desk for an MSP, managed service provider, and I did a TAFE course sort of side by side with that. So that was my leg in, I guess. Nothing too crazy or complicated. I guess you utilise, some contacts if you've got them, and that's what I did.
I mean, we have talked about it a lot on many previous episodes. Sometimes it is what but we all need a leg out. It's not altruism. It's sometimes it's just we're in South Australia. It's a small state. Everyone knows everyone, and it does help.
And I truly believe, to be clear, I don't feel as though I'm confident in saying I didn't get any favoritism throughout any of this process. As I said, the first person that I caught up with didn't hire me. He just gave me some advice, and like I said, I had to go through the same process as anyone else. But the great thing about IT is, kind of going back to what I said earlier, you can do so much from behind a keyboard, and there's so many training resources online. It really, and we've hired people straight off, with just as raw as I was, and they might have just done a few online courses and demonstrated enough, I guess, general competence for us to take a leap. And so that's one of the great things about IT is you don't need to. And I think the advantage is also, as I was saying earlier, you can kind of, I guess, you don't have to feel like you're taking this ginormous leap by signing up for a degree or something like that. Excuse me. You can work yourself into it. There's a lot of resources out there online. Excuse me.
You're right. You're a human.
I'm cringing.
You're gonna cough. It does happen. It's all good. I'm sure the listeners will get over it. I think it's very fair, to a certain point that, yes, there is a bit of, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But the fact that, you were, let's say, green, obviously you've got a drive there. You've got an ability to learn. I'm a huge advocate, and we have talked about it on this podcast a lot with many different guests that, people can learn things. You just need to give them the opportunity. They need to have the drive. Clearly you did. Hell of a gamble and a real risk, and, takes quite a lot of, self-control, but also it's late at night. Sorry, listeners, so I am struggling to find the words. I guess, you backed yourself. And that's a hell of a. There's not a lot of people in this world that would, with a mortgage, with a family, go, okay, I'm going to change my career and take that leap. I talk to a lot of people who are unfortunately miserable in their careers, or maybe just aren't enjoying their role and don't want to take the leap because they're stuck in a situation or they don't want to take the risk. And it's awesome that you did.
Yeah, I think you get to a point, or at least I found myself at that point, I guess, where you feel like, I think I was 29, but call it 30.
Yeah, you're still an adult. You're not, straight out of school.
I guess I truly believe that with enough determination, and enough drive, you can change career at any point. I would be absolutely willing to change career again if I felt that, that I was interested in doing so. But I did feel, I guess, based on what my wife and I were planning for the future, etc., that it was time to make a decision. And I suppose I did look at those around me that maybe didn't like their job all that much, and they were older than me, and I just remember feeling like, well, if I don't make a decision soon,
life's short.
I'm just going to be that person. I can see the next 20 years going in the blink of an eye, and I won't have progressed, and I'll be doing the same old thing. So I got to a point where, people have told me at times, like, oh, well done, it's a big thing to make a career change. But I never really felt like, and I don't want to come across as, what's the word? I don't want to be downplaying the significance of it as well. I don't want to come across as, I'm very fortunate that my wife was able to support me through this process, and I took a over 50% pay cut.
I mean, hell of a, geez.
And not everybody has the
the financial backing or the support
is in a situation to be able to do that. So
if your wife is listening, we should be like, thank you. Thanks, babe.
I did support her, I think, through uni, so I think we, in terms of the mortgage and whatnot, I think we're pretty even, but not to downplay her sacrifice, because I'm so grateful that she was able to keep us afloat throughout that time, and she was completely supportive. I think she could see it, going back to what I was saying, that I was at that crossroad, and I needed to make that decision. But and I do, as I said, just want to make it clear, I'm aware that not everybody is in that fortunate position as I was, and you do need to be prepared to take a bit of a hit and to kind of be that small fish in the
it is a
big
leap
pond
point. You are starting from the bottom often,
because I'd worked my way up. In my old career, I did end up becoming an owner, or I had shares in the business, also. I guess I suppose the mechanic was maybe not quite as descriptive as my role really was, if that makes sense. I was invoicing front of house. I had my own customer base. I was co-managing the business, and I was a co-owner, I suppose. Small share, but so
you'd worked your way up.
I'd worked my way up, and obviously making that change, you end up at the bottom again. So it's definitely, I'm not trying to say it's not a significant thing, but I guess you just get to that point, or I certainly found myself at that point where I felt I had to make that decision. And so in the end, it really wasn't actually that difficult. When the decision it's almost like it felt like I'd made my decision on the spot. It was, this is the alternative if you don't make this decision. It's like
very fair.
So I think that's how it felt for me anyway. So you kind of just jump in and see what happens. And actually, it was extremely exciting at the time. And I straight away I felt like I'd made the right decision. And for years I hadn't been in that position. It makes you feel young again. To go into the big wide world again and know nothing, but there's all this opportunity. It was really exciting, and that's maybe one day I'll be in the same position, because
never know.
Certainly don't I'd recommend it if you're having doubts and you're not happy in your current career. Certainly test the waters, see what's out there.
Oh yeah, I mean, 100% agree. I mean, I've done a very similar thing. I was reading a study a couple of weeks ago saying that I think now the average industry change for the standard worker in their working life is like 3.2 different industries that you work across, and obviously there's transversal transitional skills that we talked about before that it's a smooth transition, but sometimes you are starting right again from the bottom and a huge leap. So yeah, 100%. Getting back to our fast five, because we did get off on a tangent, which is absolutely fine. The last one was salary range. What kind of salary range are we talking for someone typically in the IT industry? And again, I know it depends on how long you've been in the industry, which one you're doing, maybe specifically for yourself.
Yeah, I think, in my specific role right now, you're probably, I guess if I'm going to just give a rough range, at least this can literally vary from city to city in Australia, and from country to country, but in Adelaide, where we are, my role, you're probably talking low hundreds.
Good money, yeah. Good money, 100%.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's for the perks that you get, I'm certainly happy. I'm making more now than I was as a mechanic.
I mean, 6 figures, can't go wrong.
But
and again, like you said, it's dependent, which is fair. What's your opinion of the opportunity for growth there? In money, in role, in position.
Again, I have to kind of talk in the perspective of, I guess, my niche in the big, wide industry. But I think it's hard to say. It could be infinite almost. If you become specialised, you're extremely good at what you can do. Some people are basically, they can write their own checks. But I would say realistically, in this industry I'm in, you're probably talking mid hundreds to high hundreds if you're really, really good, without being in, like, I think beyond that, maybe you probably have to start looking at your own running your own shows, sort of thing.
There's always a ceiling in every industry, but I think it sounds like one that's very good cheddar or good coin, good cheese, whatever we want to call it, but definitely opportunity there to growth and to build specialties and areas of interest.
Yeah, I don't feel maxed out at all yet. I mean, in my experience, if I go back to where I started, I was on half that. I think I was on 45 maybe. And that was only because I was an mature age.
And you're doing a traineeship.
I was literally
as well.
a student, so I was considered a mature age student. So most of my colleagues that were in their early 20s at the time, and this was their first job, were paid even less. And we're talking about 4 years ago. I think I've been in the industry about 4 years now, so it's probably changed since then. But I think there was frequent pay rises as I sort of proved my worth, I guess, and developed those skills that I needed to develop. There were frequent pay rises up until maybe 70 to 80. And then I think really to break past that ceiling becomes a little bit harder. You've really got to know your stuff at that point. And it's a lot more negotiating, at least in my experience. And then from where I am now to go to that next level, it's kind of similar. I don't expect to be getting significant pay rises without making that reasonably big commitment to heavily specialize, or shift to, like I said, maybe like an internal role or something like that in the MSP space. I think to go from that sort of lower 100 range to say a mid 100 range, and again I'm talking probably more in Adelaide perspective and my limited exposure in general, I think when you're starting to go into that mid hundreds, you really have to know your stuff, and that's probably where you're starting to specialise.
Talking sort of industry leader,
so
those kind of things.
I don't expect that I'm going to, without going down that, choosing a path in that regard, to be getting much more in the near future anyway.
Very fair, very fair. Loaded question. What's your take on, and again, this is a very generalised question, particularly around AI, so I'm sorry, because I know, IT, like we talked about, it's a broad spectrum. What's your opinion of AI in general? You for it, you're against it, you go nuts, scares the shit out of me, because you talk to a lot of people, and it's usually very few fence sitters, and it's either pure yes or pure no.
I probably am a bit of a fence sitter.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, look, as you said, I'm not a specialist at all in this area. So take this with a grain of salt. Don't have all that much exposure to it in terms of the back end of it all, I guess. But I'm interested in it. I've been following it when ChatGPT came out, which was really my first exposure to it, which pretty much coincided with when I got into the industry. I was blown away. That we hadn't seen anything like that. But the more you sort of learn about it, I'm certainly not afraid of it.
Just point a bit towards yourself. That's all.
I'm certainly not afraid of it.
Okay, well, that's a good sign.
I don't think it's taking my job anytime soon. I think it really needs to be viewed as a tool. Just like it's kind of it's like Google.
Yeah.
No, Google wasn't taking your job. Google just made your job easier. Or a carpenter, you had a hammer and you had to hammer every nail in, right? And then there was, nail
gun. Yeah.
A nail gun's not going to take your job away from you, because all a nail gun can do is shoot nails into.
Well, there's a lot of people that are talking about. I'm not sure if you've seen it or not. You probably have. It's all over social media at the moment where there's AI generated songs.
Yeah.
And it's literally like, I have a make me a song about a man who's walking down a long road and he's had too much whiskey. And then it makes like a smooth jazz or like a blues kind of song, and it sounds fucking great. And you're like, oh my God. But I use I'm just recently come around to AI. Not that I was ever against it, but I've started using like Copilot and ChatGPT for a few things, just for efficiency wise. And you can still tell the difference, to say the least. Like, it's not 100% perfect in my opinion, but I agree with you. It's there to help.
The thing is, AI. It's not conscious, and it's not. My understanding, from my limited, I guess.
Yeah. Just your opinion.
Hobbyist kind of research, I suppose. Okay. So I could be way wrong here.
Mate,
so
I'm
don't
a
take this as
grandpa
fact.
and don't know how to use tech at all, and I've still got an opinion.
It's essentially a massive data set. They train these large language models on, it just scrapes the internet. Okay. And the reason it's so good at spitting out these really believable sentences and songs and stories is because it's every public forum, Reddit, social media where people are conversing. It's scraped all of that, and it recognizes patterns.
Okay.
And so with all of that data, billions and billions maybe of gigabytes of data, it works out how people talk. When you ask it a question, it just looks at its data and it goes, what is the most likely answer?
So what's the top
to
hits?
This question?
Okay.
It has nothing to do with whether that answer is. It doesn't know
whether
what it's
right
saying. It actually does not know even what it's saying.
Okay. Because there's always that theory of like it's self-aware, and then you go down the fucking Terminator line and people freak out.
We're not even close to that. We're not even close to that, and that's the thing. So you have, going back to what you were saying about using it, to generate things, and it's generally pretty good. You have to vet it.
Yeah.
You still have to vet it, and it's really the professional still needs to be there on the other end.
Yeah, actually working it
to use it. So it's saving you time. Typing away, writing paragraphs, or rehashing things that you already know and you've already written a million times before. And I'm sure people had other methods for doing that, templates and things. But that's what it really is. It's an aid to just help with the tedious, menial filler that you would otherwise need to manually write for yourself. I use
it to summarize documents or summarize an email chain.
And that's another thing it's great for. Yeah. I use it all the time for, spreadsheets, things like that, trying to find that little bit of information in a massive document or whatever.
So someone that's in IT, you're not worried about it taking your job?
No, not at all. I mean, I'm not convinced from what I've seen, at least at this point, that we're that close to that. And there's a lot of AI startups around. I've been involved in meetings where, they're trying to pitch this latest AI system that's going to streamline, and it's all buzzwords, right?
Yeah.
Streamline your workflow,
Improve efficiency.
none of it has any substance. None of it has any, I don't know what the word is, specification.
I don't know. It is late on Friday night, so you're doing well.
So, it's I haven't even seen it perform a percent of my job convincingly and reliably enough for it to take over my job. So in terms of taking over people's jobs, I don't think, maybe some clerical jobs or something like that. I don't know, and it also, it's such a broad thing, AI in itself. AI is not just ChatGPT. That's really just a large language model. There's all sorts of AI. It's just a banner marketing term that we apply to it. AI has been around for 50 plus years. It's just become mainstream, and it's become popular in the last couple. But so it's just a tool at this point, in my opinion, that you use not to achieve any real, I guess, you shouldn't really, in my opinion, be making decisions based on anything that ChatGPT or any of these large language models are telling you. It's really just there to reinforce something that you already know, or, as you said, pull out a little bit of information from information that already exists. You give it a document, that document already contains the information. It's not having to
actually
come up with that answer.
Yeah.
It's just finding you the answer from the data you've already given it. Because it's been trained on data sets and information that already exists. Does that make sense? It's not going to...
How you're explaining it, to be honest, makes real sense. I had a colleague a couple of days ago who had to give a presentation to a community forum, and they had a whole bunch of statistics, saying, I'm spitballing here because I don't want to, make that person's identity known, but they did a presentation and they said, we've improved efficiency by 50%. We've received 10,000 inquiries, 9,000 of them converted to a positive outcome, whatever it was. All they did was literally dot point info, put it into ChatGPT, and then it made it a speech. But when I think about it, that colleague actually entered the specific data
it's
and
the
info
filler around it. It's
and then
padding.
and then it was like, and then it literally just made a speech, and it was fantastic as well, because the colleague even just said, "Hey, like, it's too long. I need it to be 5 minutes, not 10." Took out a lot of the waffle. But how you're explaining it, that colleague actually just put in the specific details, is 100% right.
Yeah, the scary thing, I think, if you want to talk about fears, I suppose I do worry sometimes that we all have the benefit right now in its infancy of having gained all of that experience and knowledge without these AI language models. And so is the next generation, or the generation that are learning now,
are they going
to develop that
I guess
that knowledge from
that baseline knowledge that now has been taken up by
you
AI.
could convincingly it's happened. It's happening. People are writing entire essays using AI, and they have all these tools that are meant to recognize AI written exams and stuff. And the hit rate of these things is terrible. And it's telling people it's authentic essays that were truly written by human beings are getting flagged as AI. Essays that are completely AI are getting passed, so it's difficult, because you worry that there's going to be this entire generation of workers that did just use AI to pass all these things, because as I said, functions. It's not that the things that AI can generate are wrong either. Those big data sets I was talking about, they're based on real knowledge that's out there, and so you can use it, I guess, to an extent, if you're lucky enough to elevate your abilities.
Isn't this just the next step, though, of technology and development? Like, you think about 30, 40 years ago, we still had, dial phones, where you used to press, ring, ring, and
Yeah.
my niece and nephew wouldn't even know what the hell that looks like.
Well, it's like they always say, it goes right back, like, when people started writing on paper and reading storybooks, it was like these damn books, they're turning kids' brains to mush, and then it was TV, or it was music, and then it was and then it was video games, and then it was, social media, and there's always, every generation has their brain mush fear that everyone, is afraid of.
I remember when I was a kid, it was, don't sit too close to the TV, you'll get square eyes and stuff like that.
Exactly.
There's always going to be those kind of things, but ultimately it's there to help, I think, is what a lot of people forget.
Yeah.
That, it's taking jobs, it's ruining our ability to be creative.
I think it'll sort itself out. And maybe some jobs will be, I read something on the internet, I'm going to butcher this, but it was something about, like, when they've built the first weaving machines to make clothing, so they could mass produce cheap clothes, and it was a big deal. It used to be, back in the day, you'd have a couple of outfits, that was it, because it was so expensive, because they were all hand woven, and they built these big weaving presses, and it was like the end of, you put all these, I guess you call them like a weaving house, I don't know what they were called, but all these factories full of people manually weaving, cotton or whatever, to build clothes, put them all out of work. But those people just found other jobs. They applied their skills elsewhere, or the funny thing was, they become more sought after, because a handmade, a hand-woven
now a rare commodity compared
outfit
to
is now this luxury item.
Standard generation.
And so, I just think society can't function if we don't all have jobs and we're not all generating.
It's very fair. It's very fair. It's a bit scary, but it is very fair.
I mean, I'm sure there are going to be people that are affected by it, maybe, but I mean, like I said, from my experience and from what I've seen from it so far, I don't see it anything more than a tool that needs close. You need to keep a close eye on. I use AI daily, and I think about this all the time. I don't actually know if it's really made me all that much more productive, because it takes so much curation.
That's coming
to
from
get
you,
it to
though,
generate
that might be
what you
tech
want.
savvy or whatnot, whereas someone like me, who's a Neanderthal person that gets 60 emails a day and I can't be buggered reading them, or not that, but I just
absolutely
in a rush or whatnot. There's efficiencies.
And don't get me wrong, there's so many tasks that it's saved me time on, for sure. But I think as soon as you try and push it, to do anything more complicated than, generating a big, blurb of text, you can derail it pretty quickly, in my experience. And at that point, you're trying to correct it. You're trying to change your prompts to get the output that you want. After a while, it's like, geez, I could have just done this myself in the same amount of time. So, yeah, it's a tool. You need to work out how it can help you, but it's certainly not, in my opinion, anywhere close to putting anyone out of a job.
Very fair. We have gone massively off topic, and that's my fault, because I generally wanted to ask you about AI and all that kind of thing, particularly for your role and being in IT. What's some sort of the common problems that you kind of get? Is it simple user error? Is it someone's downloaded the wrong porn file and they've got now a virus? Like, what are we talking as a common thing that you're problem solving?
Oh, it just ranges, right? I mean, a lot of the time we're solving our own problems. The things are really, most of the time, I would say. I mean, it depends what stream you're in. You've got your frontline support teams they're dealing with, they're your help desk, right? They're dealing with your general day-to-day things, and yes, a lot of the time it's just user error. Even the user might not understand that, right? But you have to understand that not everyone's and this is a challenge. It really is a challenge sometimes for people in the industry to understand that others aren't as technical. You know, we all have this natural kind of way of thinking, brain circuitry, that so many things in IT, you know, general computer usage and whatnot is just second nature. So it's hard sometimes to understand that for you Joe Blows just trying to get their work done.
Oh,
It's not as intuitive for them. So there's
I've worked with some people where predicting for IT to try and set up a remote login with them would be a nightmare. Because, like, I'm talking, they type with one finger at a time.
I mean, I've definitely been on those calls where you've got to spell everything. You know, I might say, click the start button. I think most people know what the start button is, but the thing is, it's number one, it's not called this. It's actually called the start button. There used to be the name start right on the button.
Left, yeah.
And so you know, so you've got to explain to them what the start button looks like. A window. You know, like that's the, you know, sometimes you have to go to that level of detail, describing the icon that they need to press, where they need to look on the screen. And so, yeah, there is that. But it can, you know, like I said, in my job now, I think a lot of the problems that I would face day to day are actually, as I said, kind of our own problems, or they're invisible, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say to the organization that you might be working with at the time.
Okay.
It's a lot of maintenance of existing infrastructure. We have a lot of alerting and monitoring so that we know of problems before they become problems. You know, if a problem...
I think that's a lot of people wouldn't realise that, you know, they see the system crash or they see, our network's gone now.
We do.
And oh no,
as much as we can to ensure that anything that's going to bring so-called the system down... You know, we're going to know about it way before it's actually down. Okay. And so, ideally, anyway. And so there's a lot that goes into maintaining that. There's a lot that goes into setting that up. There's a lot of noise when you have so many alerts and so many monitors. You get so many false flags, false, you know, positives, or if you want to call it that. So there's a lot that goes into just that. And you're also working within the budgets of the clients.
So limited software, limited tech.
Everyone that works in IT knows what the perfect solution looks like.
Yeah,
but
whether
rarely,
you can afford it, whether you've got the infrastructure to do it, staffing,
solution.
time.
Exactly. Rarely is that actually achievable.
Okay.
People have legacy systems. They're using software that's been out of date for 20 years, but they absolutely rely on it. So you've got to make
it's too big to
newer technology work with older technology.
Does that come across... sorry to interrupt you. Does that come across a lot where you're working in a sector or with a business where it's almost too big to fail or too big to change? Like they've relied on that system for decades, so now you know they physically cannot divert to another one because they can't, you know, have the time without the tech in place.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a big thing, is outage. You know, if you're building a new system from the ground up, or you're you know heavily, you know, you're bringing an old system into the modern age, there's inevitably going to be some amount of downtime, so you've got to minimize that as much as possible.
Yeah, and if you're talking a business that's 9 to 5, Monday to Friday,
absolutely,
we have businesses that are
24/7.
Yeah, exactly. And then not only that, I'm assuming the staff of that business that you've now got to retrain to be familiar with the new software.
Absolutely, I mean that's a massive one. Is trying to modernize these environments without, but retain that familiarity that people have.
It can't be too much of a dramatic...
Because, and that's the thing, I think that is such a massive challenge in the industry, is a lot of these products work so differently to what people are used to. And ultimately, that if you were able to learn that new way of doing things, it would increase productivity, it would make things so much smoother, and it would come with all of these benefits, but that's such a challenge, and most people don't want to go through that.
And by the time you do a task or a project that challenging, you know, there's a review phase, an implementation phase, a problem-solving phase, then there's the re-evaluation phase, and then the evaluation phase at the end. Like, it's not just we flick a switch, old system out, new system in.
Oh, absolutely.
The amount of time I could see in the background that no one would see.
You know, you've got to...
and then budgets, you know, you've got to keep within budget.
I mean, budget's often the biggest thing, right? and I guess that's for everything.
Well,
But
I'm assuming tech's expensive, but we rely on it. Like, you have to have it.
yeah, I mean, it's expensive, but absolutely. I mean, even something as small as, often we might be queried literally the cost of running up a device. So, because we do everything from
We're not
that.
just buying,
We do
the computer or the laptop. But
we literally build the entire environment, the server infrastructure, the networking infrastructure, everything that keeps these businesses operating.
Yeah.
But we also do the laptops. Like, most of our clients, we're doing the whole lot. And so, but often it's a common thing where we're queried on why does it cost this much when we, for you to, we pay X amount for a laptop, and then there's this massive fee on top to get it set up.
Well, it needs the software on it. It needs protections. It needs antivirus. It needs authenticator.
It really is a big process. I don't think that's often understood. Is, you can automate a lot of it, but if you truly want it to be as seamless as an experience as possible, you jump off your old device and you're on your new device, and it's indistinguishable. Your icons are where you left them, your bookmarks are all there, your emails are there, all the settings that you had configured are all the same. That's a big task, and automation can only get you so far. So there's still a lot of and a lot of businesses have the understanding that some of that, a lot of that is the user's job. So there's, a lot of environments where it's just you swap out a laptop, here's the base set of apps, here's the basic settings, you're on your own for the rest. That happens, especially in bigger environments. But if you want that really personalized experience, hop off your old laptop and onto your new laptop, and nothing has changed. It's completely familiar and the same. That takes a fair bit. And I think if you understand what goes into
password, let alone
suddenly the cost of setting up these devices that seems so outrageous at the beginning is oftentimes, in my experience, not enough to really cover what actually went into that. And the thing is, you can automate a lot of this, and you can get a lot of this to be quite seamless and a lot faster and a lot more efficient. But the investment has to happen at some point. So you're either spending time running up the device, setting up the device, and sitting down with the user and running them through it, or you're spending that time on a massive project to make all of this automated. And then the maintenance that goes into, there's so much that goes into maintaining that. And so the investment has to happen. There's no free lunch.
I think that's what kind of scares me about IT is and I do apologise, we need to wrap up soon because we're getting to time. But I think that's what kind of scares me is that there's always a lot of pressure that's put on potential efficiencies with IT. Like the example you just gave of, I could sit with someone, set it up with them, and no worries at all, or I could be setting up a whole different new system so that new users can just instantly transfer over. And like you said, either way, you've got to give that avenue of effort, cost, time, whatever it might be. But I've been in so many businesses and industries where they've gone, we'll upgrade our tech, we'll go to this different platform, we'll use this different software, we'll use this different phone line provider, whatever it might be. And the reliance that now, we're running at 50%, we've got to go to 80% just because we've updated this. And it's almost like we're using it as a scapegoat to say, well, it's not our fault if we're not improving. The tech's just going to make it better for us.
In my experience, what I often see as well is most of the time these new product stacks or whatever you want to call it that come through are never really implemented properly for all the reasons we just talked about.
Well, they're rushed because they get
so you end up
a ridiculous
split between multiple systems, right? We're going from this old way of doing things to this new way of doing things, and in theory, like you said, old ones turned off, new ones turned on. In my experience, it's often actually half of it still stays in the old system because it wasn't implemented in the new system right, or the new system can't do how the old system did. So you end up fragmenting the stack even more.
Potentially ruin both.
So that's what I mean. It's complicated stuff, and it's not easy, and it's there's no shortcuts. I think
we do need to wrap up. I'm sorry, because I think we have both our partners wanting us to wrap up. Thank you so much. I definitely want to try and get you back for another episode because I think we've barely even scratched the surface of the complexity of IT, the reliance. I mean, we haven't even gotten into app development and your opinion on that, and smartphones. There's so much difference in tech. So, but either way, thank you very much for your time.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully we can get you back for another episode.
No, glad to come back.